Ambassador Davies, on July 20th, Secretary Kerry was quoted as saying that North Korea has been quieter. I wouldn't describe the historic number of missiles and rocket and artillery launches this year so far, nearly 100, as quiet. I also don't believe that solely because North Korea hasn't staged another nuclear test this year, that we would necessarily call Pyongyang's behavior quiet. Can you perhaps clarify why Secretary Kerry is describing North Korea as such, and tell us how you can justify that classification?
Turn this on. Mr. Chairman, the Secretary said a lot of things. That was one thing he said, and I think that to kind of place it back in context, the Secretary was referring to the fact that we are now some time on from the last major strategic provocation by North Korea. It's been a while since they've either launched a three-stage intercontinental ballistic missile or tested a nuclear device.
Do you think he would want to rephrase that perhaps differently, or would you?
I think in context, it's easy to understand what the Secretary was saying, which is that the cooperation, the collaboration, the diplomacy that we've been conducting with South Korea, China, and our other partners in the process has gotten a message through to Pyongyang that when it acts strategically, when it tests a nuclear device, and it's the only country on Earth to have done it in this century, when it launches a three-stage intercontinental ballistic missile, the world will react. It will react strongly and unanimously. So I think that's what the Secretary is referring to. It's absolutely the case, and the Secretary has also spoken to this, as have other senior officials, that North Korea's recent behavior is unacceptable. The fact that it continues time after time to launch these ballistic missiles, violate UN Security Council resolutions, that cannot be countenanced.
Well, I would certainly agree with you and the administration that it's unacceptable. I certainly wouldn't have called it quieter, but that's okay. I'm going to turn to Ambassador King if I can at this time. Ambassador, you've done a commendable job representing the North Korea human rights portfolio. I also recognize the difficulties you face since the administration doesn't make the human rights issue, in my view, enough of a top priority. It's, I think, at best, a second-tier issue behind nuclear proliferation, even if it's given sometimes lip service by calling it a top priority and constant focus. As such, I'm disappointed that following the release of the UN Commission of Inquiry report, in my view, little has been done. No human rights sanctions, no executive orders, and no move for a vote in the Security Council. Ambassador King, can you tell us what is being done at this time to hold North Korea accountable for the mass atrocities described in that report? I mean, it was a horrific thing to read, and why there's been so little movement since the report's release. And then also, are you aware that there are 3 Americans currently detained in Pyongyang? And I'm deeply concerned particularly about their well-being and safety. And one of those individuals, Jeffrey Fowle, he's from right outside my district in Ohio. I'm told he's being brought to trial, accused of carrying out hostile acts against the country. Can you provide us with an update about this situation and where in the process the administration is to get these individuals released out of North Korea? And I certainly understand in a forum like this you have to be careful because we don't want to jeopardize their situation or put them in any more jeopardy than they already are. So I understand that, but to the degree we can handle that in a forum like this, I would appreciate some comment.
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the attention that we give to North Korea human rights, I believe it was Lyndon Johnson that said you've got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. I think that's what we're trying to do in terms of pushing on both the nuclear issue, but also pushing on the human rights issue. And I think as we've talked earlier, there is a lot that has been done this year with the release of the report. We've been attempting to use the UN report to continue to put pressure on North Korea. In the UN Security Council, we've already had an informal meeting where we've had 13 of the 15 members attend, discuss the report, and discuss its recommendations. We're also in the process of looking towards activity in Geneva. We'll continue our pressure in Geneva at the Human Rights Council on the Human Rights Report. We're also going to have discussions in the General Assembly in October at which the Commission of Inquiry's report will be discussed. There will be a resolution that will be prepared and adopted in the General Assembly by the end of this year. We're very active in terms of looking at how we might further push this forward in terms of action in the Security Council. With regard to sanctions, we're looking at sanctions. One of the issues that we need to do is try to do whatever we do in concert with other countries. Sanctions by the United States alone are very limited effectiveness. We have very little relationship with North Korea. We have very little trade. We have very little economic connection. And to the extent that we can work together with our allies and jointly adopt sanctions and look at actions that we can take together, I think the more effective those issues will be. A brief, quick comment. The 3 Americans who are being held in North Korea are a great concern to us. We've communicated with the North Koreans our concern. We've requested repeatedly that they be released on humanitarian grounds. This includes Mr. Fowle as well as Kenneth Bay and Jeffrey Miller. We're hoping to be able to have some progress on that. We continue to press the North Koreans. We've continued to work through the Swedish government, which takes care of our interests with regard to American citizens there. I've briefed your staff on this. I know you are aware of that. If there's anything that we can provide you directly, be happy to come up and talk with you about it.
Thank you for that. I'd like to continue to follow up with you at the staff level on Mr. Fowle in particular, but all of them. Thank you very much. I now recognize the acting ranking member, gentleman from California, Mr. Barra.